Have you ever thought that the greatest success in life isn't the one the world sees, but the one you win within yourself? I learned this lesson when I turned 60, but that journey began long ago, back when I was just a little girl and the world still felt far too big for me. I was born in 1965. In a modest neighborhood in California where jacaranda trees spilled purple blossoms every spring, carpeting the cracked sidewalks like nature's attempt at celebration. My father, Ray, worked as a postal clerk. He wasn't glamorous, but he was steady. He liked the sound of order, the shuffle of letters, the clunk of stamps, the way an envelope carried someone's hope from one place to another. My mother, Teresa, spent much of her life battling illness. Some days she was a gentle breeze, cooking spaghetti in the kitchen, singing softly to the radio. Other days, sickness left her curled in bed, eyes half closed, unreachable. As the oldest daughter, I learned early that responsibility was less a choice and more a calling. We weren't poor, but we were far from secure. Rent was always on the edge of late, and our family car seemed to argue every time Dad tried to start it. My two younger brothers were full of energy, racing through the house like wild animals. And often it was me who reined them in braiding shoelaces, settling fights, making peanut butter sandwiches when Mom's COULDN single quotes T. California in the late 60s looked golden on TV palm trees. Movie stars, beaches that glowed like postcards. But my childhood California was different. It was the smell of asphalt after the sun baked it too long. It was neighborhood kids playing tag under street lights. It was my mother's strained smile at the end of grocery shopping, silently calculating whether we had enough for meat that week. I loved school, not because I was brilliant, but because it gave me escape. Books were worlds that didn't ask me to cook dinner or fold laundry. I fell in love with the library, the smell of paper, the hush of voices. I dreamed of college, of writing my own story, of leaving behind the constant balancing act of bills and chores. But life had other plans. By the time I was 16, Mom's health had worsened. I became the stand-in adult, cooking, cleaning, helping my brothers with homework, even managing the family checkbook sometimes. Dad worked long hours, overtime when he could get it, his face always tired, his shoulders heavy with more than his postal bag. At 18, I wanted college desperately. My guidance counselor encouraged me, told me I had the grades. But tuition felt like an impossible mountain. My parents said they couldn't co-sign loans. "It's not that we don't want you to go, Maggie," my dad told me, his eyes tired. "It's just we don't know how to make it happen." So I stayed. I took a job at a local office supply store, ringing up customers who bought pens and paper for dreams bigger than mine. I smiled, I stacked shelves, I handed my paycheck to Dad. Each dollar felt like both a sacrifice and a lifeline. It was there, in the quiet rhythm of work, that I first learned what resilience looked like, not grand gestures, but showing up again and again, even when life said you had no right to. And somewhere in those years between responsibilities and stolen moments of laughter, I met Rick. Rick came into the store one Saturday afternoon, needing copies of flyers for his uncle's print shop. He had dark hair that always seemed one gust of wind away from disarray, and a grin that could disarm your worries, at least temporarily. He talked fast, like someone who thought life might run out if he didn't keep pace. He came back the next week, and the week after. Eventually, I learned that he was working at the print shop while trying to save enough money to start something of his own. He liked the smell of ink and the way a machine's hum meant productivity. "Print is forever," he once told me. "People may forget what you say, but if it's on paper, it lives." We began dating. At first, it was simple burgers at diners, walks under flickering street lamps. He made me laugh when I was too tired to. He believed in dreams even when I had put mine on the shelf. We married in 1986. The wedding was modest backyard chairs borrowed from neighbors, a cake my aunt baked, string lights we hung ourselves. My father gave a small speech. My mother smiled bravely through her illness. And I felt, for the first time, that maybe life could offer me more than duty. Our first home was a tiny apartment with thin walls and a view of nothing in particular. We had mismatched furniture, second-hand pots, and one television that only worked if you smacked the side. Yet I was happy, because for the first time, I wasn't carrying the weight alone. Rick shared it with me. By 1988, our first daughter, Clara, was born. In 1991, Sophia followed. And suddenly, life wasn't just about survival. It was about building something for them. If not for us. What I didn't know then was how many storms we'd have to walk through just to keep standing. Marriage gave me a new name, a new home, and a new set of dreams. But dreams, I would learn, are fragile things. They must be guarded, fed, and often rebuilt from ashes. Rick's ambition had always been the print shop. By the early 1990s, he had convinced his uncle to let him buy a share, and for a while it worked. He would come home smelling of ink and paper, his hands stained with black smudges. I used to tease him that he looked like he wrestled books into existence. He would laugh, kiss my forehead, and say, "One day this shop will be ours, and the girls will never have to worry about anything." For a few golden years, that promise felt real. We had enough to pay rent on time. We bought a used car that didn't break down every other week. On weekends, we took Clara and Sophia to the beach, where they built castles in the sand and begged for ice cream. Those were years of fragile happiness, stitched together with Rick's hard work and my long days balancing office jobs with motherhood. But nothing lasts untouched. By the late 1990s, technology began to creep into printing. Companies wanted faster, cheaper solutions, and big chains opened with machines that outpaced Rick's small press. Flyers that once brought in steady income now went to competitors. Clients who had once sworn loyalty suddenly asked for discounts Rick couldn't afford. At home, the stress seeped into everything. Bills arrived faster than payments. I picked up bookkeeping work in the evenings, tax forms, ledgers for small shops, anything to stretch us a little further. Our kitchen table was covered in papers, Rick's invoices on one side, my worksheets on the other, and school projects squeezed between. By 2001, the shop was drowning. Rick tried to borrow from banks, but interest rates bit harder than hunger. I remember the night we sat on the edge of our bed, Clara and Sophia asleep down the hall. As Rick admitted, "We're going to lose it, Maggie." The shop, the house, everything. I didn't cry then. I couldn't. I simply took his hand and said, "Then we start again." We sold the house we had worked so hard for, trading it for a cramped rental with peeling paint. The girls hated moving. Clara, then 10, sobbed as she packed her books. Sophia, only 8, asked if Santa Claus would still find us. My heart cracked, but I kept smiling, taping boxes, promising them that love wasn't tied to square footage. Rick spiraled in the years after. He was a good man, but defeat settled heavy on his shoulders. He worked our jobs delivery, driving, handyman gigs, but nothing steady. His laugh grew rarer, his silences longer. Sometimes I looked at him and saw not the man I married, but the shadow of him. The girls grew in the cracks of that broken time. Clara became quiet, withdrawn. By high school, she fell into depression, something I didn't have the language for back then. Some mornings she refused to get out of bed, staring at the ceiling as though gravity itself was too heavy. I tried everything: gentle words, stern commands, prayer. In the end, what saved her was therapy, though finding affordable care meant juggling bills even more fiercely. I sat through support groups, clutching paper cups of bad coffee, learning that I wasn't alone, that other mothers also sat at kitchen tables, terrified their daughters were drowning in invisible waters. Sophia, meanwhile, fought in the opposite direction. She threw herself into academics, determined to escape the cycle she saw crushing her father. She wanted college desperately, but when we looked at tuition, it felt like standing at the foot of a mountain with no shoes. I picked up extra shifts, taking late-night typing projects and even cleaning offices on weekends. Every dollar I saved, I thought of as a brick in Sophia's future. By 2010, exhaustion had become my second skin. The mirror showed new lines on my face, but I didn't have time to notice them. Because then came another blow. Rick's stroke. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I had just returned from the grocery store when I found him collapsed on the kitchen floor, his right side limp, his mouth struggling for words. Time-blurred sirens, hospital lights, machines beeping like frantic hearts. The doctor said he would survive, but walking would be hard, working nearly impossible. So I became caregiver as well as provider. I bathed him, helped him dress, learned the patience of feeding someone who hated feeling dependent. He apologized constantly. "You didn't sign up for this," he whispered one night. I kissed his forehead and replied, "I signed up for us." Money became a daily battlefield. I cashed out part of my small retirement savings just to keep the lights on. I cut corners everywhere, cooking beans 3 ways in a week, mending clothes long past their prime, cancelling anything that wasn't essential. There were nights I cried quietly, face pressed into a pillow so the girls wouldn't hear. And yet, in the mornings, I rose. Because what choice did I have? Through those years, I clung to small victories. Clara found a therapist who clicked, and slowly, light returned to her eyes. Sophia graduated high school with honors. Her acceptance letter to university a triumph we celebrated with a store-bought cake and tears of relief. Rick learned to shuffle with a cane, his smile shaky but present. And I kept moving, because motion itself felt like survival. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, "How much more can you endure?" I didn't know then that the answer was more. Always more. By 2015, I had stopped asking myself when life would get easier. The truth was, it rarely did. But even in the darkest years, there were sparks, moments when hope slipped through the cracks. Clara, after years of therapy, found her footing. She started volunteering at a community center, helping teenagers who struggled the way she once had. One afternoon she came home glowing, telling me, "Mom, I finally feel useful." I hugged her so tightly that she laughed. And for the first time in years, the sound filled the house with light. Sophia, true to her stubborn spirit, fought her way through college. She worked part-time jobs, studied late into the night, and graduated with a degree in education. Watching her walk across the stage in her cap and gown, I felt every sacrifice crystallize into pride. She became a teacher, determined to give kids the stability she sometimes lacked. But Rick, his health declined slowly, like a candle burning out. After the stroke, each year seemed to take more of him. In 2017, another attack left him weaker still. He spent his last years in and out of hospitals, his laugh softer, his apologies endless. In 2018, he passed away quietly in his sleep, my hand in his. Widowhood was a strange country I didn't know how to live in. The house felt cavernous without his voice. Bills didn't stop arriving. Grief didn't stop pressing, and yet the world outside continued as if nothing had changed. I learned to sit with silence, to cook for one, to fall asleep on the couch with the TV humming because an empty bedroom was unbearable. Then came 2020. The pandemic shut everything down. My office job vanished overnight. At 60, unemployed, widowed, and with rent due, I sat at my kitchen table staring at bills that felt heavier than ever. But survival has a way of whispering ideas. Mine came in the form of flour and sugar. I had always baked to soothe myself banana bread when the girls were sick, cinnamon rolls on Christmas mornings, apple pies that made neighbors linger at the door. When the world closed, I opened my oven. At first, I baked for neighbors, leaving loaves on porches. Then someone suggested I sell online. With trembling hands, I posted photos of my bread on a local community group. Orders poured in small at first, then steady dot by summer, my kitchen had become a tiny bakery. I taught myself how to run online classes, showing people over Zoom how to braid challah or bake biscuits. At first, I felt foolish talking to a screen, but soon faces appeared: young couples, retired men, college kids stuck at home, all laughing when their dough collapsed or cheering when their bread rose. For the first time in years, I felt alive, useful, connected. Sophia helped me set up a small website. Clara handled social media, posting photos of golden crusts and customer smiles. My kitchen project grew into Margaret's Home Bakes, a small catering and baking service that somehow survived even as the world felt broken. When restrictions eased, I rented a small commercial kitchen with savings and community donations. The first day I unlocked that door, my hands trembled. The room smelled of flour and possibility. I thought of Rick and wished he could see it. Perhaps, in some way, he did. Now, in 2025, I sit on the porch of a modest house I finally own. My hair is silver, my back aches more than it used to, but my heart is stronger than ever. Clara works full-time at the community center. Sophia teaches high school English, her students calling her the teacher who never gives up. My grandchildren race through the yard, their laughter a sound I once thought I might never hear again. People ask me, Margaret, how did you do it? How did you keep going after so much loss? The answer is simple, though not easy. I kept showing up. For my daughters, for myself, even for the oven that reminded me something could still rise. Life bent me. It cracked me. But it did not break me. At 60, I have learned this. Success isn't measured by wealth or ease. It is measured by endurance, by love, by the ability to rise after every fall. And so I keep rising. Still baking, still teaching, still building, still alive, because this is enough.